Hello, everyone. Well, today I have a serious topic for you. I don't know how you all feel about this topic. Um, yes, it's still the year of Maleficent. The year of Maleficent, spooky, and it's almost Halloween, or Samhain, according to Wiccans and others, pagans that celebrate Samhain. They love Samhain. But they take it seriously. It's a religious holiday for them. They don't celebrate Halloween like other people do with horror movies and haunted hayrides and scary haunted houses and shows. They don't sell and going door to door trick or treating. They reject all of that. The Wiccans do. They're very serious and they take everything very seriously. Well, you know me, I can't stand anyone that takes stuff seriously, no matter what it might be. Can't stand taking people taking stuff too seriously, too literally, and in, enforcing conformity on everybody else who associates with them. Think about it, it is a form of conformity. Supposedly, Wiccans and pagans are nonconformist, but they have their own ways that they conform to. So in a way, they're conformists too, because they enforce conformity on everybody who joins their group. They have to ascribe and feel the same way about all of their uh, uh, beliefs, attitudes. You have to adopt an attitude. It's all the same, all consistent throughout. They force it on everyone. And they will stop talking to you. They'll stop speaking to you if you don't conform. They'll stop speaking to you if you don't conform. If you don't conform, they will reject you. They will reject you and they will stop speaking to you. So, that's the way things are. That's how it goes. Conformists and nonconformists who are really secretly conformists in disguise because they enforce their beliefs on everyone else, and if you don't accept their beliefs, they reject you. But that isn't the topic of this video today. Although conformity does lead into it. Does certainly lead into it. Today I would like to discuss the fat acceptance movements and also body positivity. And of the two, I think I like body positivity more, even though the fat acceptance people chide body positivity. And they give very specific reasons for chiding body positivity as opposed to fat acceptance. The reason they don't like body positivity is because they think that body positive people are shaming the really obese or really fat, and that they're shaming them, doing body shaming, and that the body positive movement, it doesn't go far enough, that they don't keep it fat. They don't keep it just to the fat folks. They allow other people to come in as well that want to feel positive about their bodies and maybe are hung up or upset about some imperfections they may have. They think, no, those people that feel bad about their bodies, even though they're slim, we're not welcome. You're not welcome in our fat acceptance movement. Fat acceptance should be for fatties only. And they call themselves fierce fatties. And you can only use the word fat. You can't use the word obese, because obese is a medical term and it's a clinical term, and they think that's shaming fat people to call them obese. And you're not allowed to say overweight either, because that's also a medical term. So the fat acceptance people, they're very serious. They take everything very, very seriously. If you say anything off color or out of line, you become a bully. You're a bully. And bullying is not acceptable. Remember what I said about the word acceptable, that I hate the word acceptable? They say that's not acceptable. And they make their rule for what is and isn't acceptable. And um, talks about diet are not allowed. If you try to lose weight, you get banned for life. And they they can't accept you from where you are or what. It's the mind they can't accept. They can't accept your mind, even though that's the one thing that's hardest to change for people to change. Even harder than changing their bodies is changing their minds. But that is the one thing they will not accept. They will not accept your mind. According to their attitude, which they have adopted wholeheartedly and completely adopted this attitude. And they can enforce conformity all across the board. All across the board, conformity to their ideas. Conformity, 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 conformity. They enforce this conformity. It smooths over everybody's thoughts, everybody's feelings. You can't express your frustration. You can't express your frustration. You can't express your upsetness. You can't express the desire to lose weight or your dieting experiences and how they were failures. You can't do any of that. You can't do any of that. You must conform. You must conform to their philosophy, their rigid philosophy, and their attitude. You have to be fat positive all of the time. All of the time. You can never have a weekday, or by weekday I don't mean days of the week. I mean weekday, W-E-A-K. You can't have a day when you're weak. You can't have a day when you're down on yourself. You have to be upbeat all the time, and always conforming. Always conforming to the fat acceptance agenda. So I looked at this, and while I would like to be a radical fatty, the fat acceptance movement, the direction is going, I go way down. It's a thumbs down for the fat acceptance movement, because they go in a direction that is, they call it radical, and they consider themselves radical. But what it is a new form of conformity. It's a new conformist agenda that you have to swallow the whole thing, hook, line, and sinker. I don't accept anything hook, line, and sinker. I go the other way because I don't want to get caught. That's how a fish gets hooked, by swallowing something hook, line, and sinker. It just sounds like a trap to me. Sounds like a trap. And when you first go on the fat acceptance movement website, very first thing you see in a great big block in all bold letters, Black Lives Matter. And what Black Lives Matter has done in this world, the things that they've done, I can't accept Black Lives Matter. And the leader of their group, the Fat Acceptance Group, is a black woman, and she is even more concerned and more gung-ho for fighting racism than fat acceptance. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with fighting racism. But it is an emphasis on race as opposed to fat acceptance. In other words, if you want to join her group, if you want help with your social life, and if you want to have a social life, and if you want to be accepted as a fat person, you have to accept Black Lives Matter also, and you have to accept a anti-capitalist agenda. And you have to be 100% behind anti-racism efforts and less focused on fat acceptance. Now, some people say, well, that's not a fair judgment. You should be more accepting of the anti-racism thing, and you should put all your efforts behind this anti-racism because it's more important than fat acceptance. But I didn't sign on for that. Okay, I didn't sign on for that. I didn't sign on for campaigning against racism to the exclusion of fat acceptance. So we'll just put fat acceptance on a back burner, just focus on anti-racism efforts. I just wanted to meet other fat people. I didn't want to be signed on for an anti-racist agenda and go support Black Lives Matter and go burn down a business because it's a capitalist establishment. The communists have commandeered and taken over this fat acceptance movement. The communists have moved in and taken it over and adopted it as one of their little I want to say an app because it reminds me of an applet or a little app that does something. A little app that does something. They've added all their apps together. First one was anti-capitalist. That was their first app. Then they added queer. Then they added fat acceptance. Then they added color. And now they're one big happy leftist family. I'll tell you something. The left, if you're thin and you're on the left, you should know that the history of your party has not been fat acceptance at all. In fact, leftist people have absolutely, positively, in every way, shape, and form rejected fat acceptance. Okay, they just have. They are in league with scientists. Science. Ooh, science! Remember that video? Science! And these scientists are not objective. They're not open-minded. They bring all their prejudices with them into the scientific arena. And then they try to use science to back up and justify their absolute wholesale criticism and condemnation of all fat people. And because science and the medical community that are so rejecting of fat people, they're so hard on them, they're so harsh, they're so bad, those people are in league with the left. Science and the medical community are in league with the left. And so the left has been very rejecting of fat people. Oh yeah, you go to Minneapolis, it's a slim city. Slim city. Some of the slimmest people in the United States. It's hard to find an obese person anywhere in Minneapolis because they chase them out. They chase them out of the city. And it's very, very far left-leaning. But there's no fat acceptance to be found. It's the medical community and the scientific community of prejudice in league with the leftists. And I just want to talk briefly about a fat person. Okay. It's Rush Limbaugh. Yeah, you hate Rush Limbaugh. He said terrible things about women and talked about cutting off a woman's breasts being the same as cutting off a man's penis, and he said horrible, awful, terrible things about women. Any self-respecting woman wouldn't want anything to do with Rush Limbaugh. But I know something about Rush Limbaugh that you don't. Okay, but it should be obvious just looking at him. He is an obese man, okay? And for all the bad things he said and done, he was bullied. That's right. Rush Limbaugh, the guardian of the right, he was bullied for being a fat man. And because he was bullied, he swung as far right as he could possibly go because the left rejected him. That's right, the left rejected Rush Limbaugh. Every leftist person he ever encountered was fat prejudiced. Every left person was fat prejudiced, but the right, were more welcoming. The right were more welcoming of obese people for many, many years. And the right were warm-hearted, and he could tell that they genuinely cared about him. And then, because the left had bullied him, Rush Limbaugh became a bully. He became a bully as a direct result. And then later on, he binged on cocaine and he lost his radio show, and he finally died of lung cancer. At home, I assume that he was at home because it was during the COVID lockdown. He died of lung cancer at home after being bullied by the left for many, many, many years, and all of the hell that they put fat people through, all the hell, and just dragging them through the mud and saying, you fatty, why don't you lose weight? The left sanctioned that kind of discrimination and cruel, unjust treatment of fat people for many, many years. And the result was a bully. Rush Limbaugh became a bully because he had been bullied. So just think about that. Think about how the left bullied fat people for many years and justified it using science and the medical community for many years. Yeah, they've been on the side of every single minority group, including LGBT, which could be considered all in one's mind or all in one's head by certain people. It's not all in your head, but it could be considered all in one's mind or all in one's head. But how can you help it? Well, it's the same thing with being fat. How can you help it when 99% of all diets fail? And then you're still telling people to try to lose weight? You're the failure. You're the failure if you keep telling people to lose weight when it's been scientifically proven to be a long shot for most people, practically a physical impossibility to lose the weight. If you are a certain genetic phenotype, and in our environment, a modern environment where it's practically impossible for you to lose weight because 99% of diets fail, and you're still shoving diets down our throats. Who's prejudiced now? Who's prejudiced now? Yes, there's fat prejudiced people on the right. Trump, he called a woman fat. I don't remember the context where he called a woman fat, but he was very cruel to her and said that she had gained weight and that she shouldn't be so fat. But Trump gained a lot of weight himself. Trump is well on his way to becoming overweight or obese person because he's gained a lot of weight. Trump has put on a lot of weight himself, so he may have said negative things about fat people, but pretty soon he'll be classified as fat. So, and Biden was telling this guy at this town hall meeting that he needed to jog to catch up with him, and he was basically saying, "Hey, fatty," to this guy. He said, "Just try running a 5-minute mile. Try running a 5-minute mile with me, and let's see who clocks in the fastest. The guy was obviously obese. That was questioning him. He was obviously overweight, and Biden was trying to humiliate him because of his weight. So Biden isn't such a great guy for fat acceptance either. Both the left and the right, there have been people who have made negative, demeaning, vicious comments about fat people. But of the two, the right has been more accepting of fat people, even though they don't champion or trumpet fat acceptance. They'll accept you if you're still trying to diet, but they don't try to condemn you for dieting or wanting to lose weight. But at the same time, they just, to them, it's a non-issue. It's a non-issue, and they just hang up their hats and go home. They hang up their hats when they go home. They don't make it an issue. They don't. They're not blurting out, trumpeting champions of fatness or fat acceptance or radical fatties or anything like that. They're just probably more obese people are on the right than anywhere else, and that's because for many, many, many years the left has been unwelcoming and condemning and humiliating fat people and not accepting of them at all. I was a glutton for punishment. Yes, I was. I was a glutton for punishment. I turned to the left. This was many years ago. I turned to the left, and I was very, very loyal to the left for many, many years. They weren't welcoming of me at all. They didn't welcome me. They didn't thank me. They didn't come to me even one single day and say, thank you. Thank you for choosing the left. Thank you for being you. Thank you for caring. They didn't do any of that. They didn't do any of that. They never thanked me. They never welcomed me. Went to the professional lesbians club. They were professional lesbians. In other words, they were professionals who happened to be lesbians. Totally rejected me. Wouldn't speak to me. Tried their best to ignore me. Formed a tight circle so they could crowd me out physically so that they could just talk to each other and not have anything to do with me. I was the only fat one there. And the only person who was willing to speak to me was a trans woman. That's it. Just a trans woman was willing to speak to me, and everybody else crowded me out. And they viciously and very determinedly ignored me and crowded themselves into a little circle so that they could shut me out and wouldn't have anything to do with me. None of them would talk to me. I was a pariah, and it was all based on lookism, because I did not come in there looking unusual or acting unusual in any way, shape, or form. Okay, I did not look or act unusual in any way, shape, or form. They very blatantly discriminated against me because of my weight. And for many, many, many years, I saw ads saying weight proportional to height, and heard from lesbians that preferred and desired thin women. I didn't want anyone fat. It's not true that the lesbians prefer fat breasts than fat thighs. They don't. They really don't. They want you to be twiggy. They want you to look like a thin stick. Even the fat ones want you to look like a thin stick. They're unwelcoming, and they've even driven me to consider suicide even in the past. That I've had suicidal thoughts because I was so horrendously and horribly rejected by them. and they're on the left. They're the left. They're the face of the queer left. They are the face of the left. They are the face of the left. And I've had more men interested in me than women, which makes me curious. It makes me wonder about taking up with a man. I'm curious about it, not excited or not attracted, but just curious, because they've been more welcoming of me and liked me better than any lesbian I've ever met. Ever. So, I really have no way of getting in contact with a lesbian that would care for me or like me. But here I am admitting that I'm a lesbian. But I know that everyone on the left has rejected me. Now you see why I don't accept the left or the right. Okay? Even though the right is more welcoming of fat people, they're less welcoming of lesbians, and the lesbians have rejected me completely, so can't turn to the left either. Nowhere to turn to, nowhere to run away, nowhere to hide. I've just been bullied. So if you think that I maybe seemed in any of my videos in the past to be a bully in any way, or said something that was considered bullying by somebody because it was off color or politically incorrect to say it, just know that I have been bullied by the left, and they've done it with impunity, with no feelings of guilt or personal responsibility whatsoever. They had zero consideration for me. They were total bigots. They were totally bigoted toward me. I was never, ever welcomed. I never felt welcomed. I never was welcomed. So, this is like a final frontier, right? Weight acceptance, fat acceptance. I don't like what I saw when I looked at the fat acceptance movement. I might turn to the body positivity movement, because that seems more accepting of me, where I'm at, than, look, I'm a real live human being, okay? I am not able or capable of conforming to you. All right? I'm not capable of it. Sometimes I feel body negative. Sometimes I have issues with my body and I want to get it off my chest. Sometimes I think about dieting and diets. That should all be okay, given my past history and the way that I've been treated. That should be okay. But to the fat acceptance crowd, it's not okay. It's never okay. And if you talk that way, they shame you for talking that way or thinking that way. They shame you for your mind, and they call you a bully. So, bye-bye fat acceptance movement. I prefer the body positivity movement because they're more open-minded toward allowing people to vent and allowing people to be their genuine, authentic selves even when they're not conforming, and being open-minded and being accepting. So what I would like to leave you with is this. Rush Limbaugh was obviously a product of bullying. He was bullied, so he knew nothing else except bullies. So he became a bully himself. A lot of fat people have been pushed right into the waiting arms of the right by the liberal agenda. The liberal agenda has pushed us away. We have been horribly bullied by the left. And just think, if you don't think I'm telling the truth and you think you're calling BS on this, think again. Think twice before you call BS on any of this. Okay? You don't think so, but you aren't in my skin. You haven't lived with the horrible prejudice and rejection that I have from everyone on the left. So before you call BS on this, walk a mile in my moccasins and walk a mile in my shoes and figure out for yourself whether I am indeed spouting BS or whether there is something to this that the left has been rejecting of fat people and fat acceptance with their pop tax, soda tax, and all the rest of the things they do to try to push you to lose weight. I'm Sarah Jane Alpha Wolf signing off. Have a terrific week, and don't let the fat shamers get to you.